Please take a second to subscribe, then like and share afterwards. We can really use your support. Thank you. Welcome to our new series, Mysteries Uncovered. We are going to delve deep, very deep, into some of the most enigmatic and mysterious secrets known and unknown to man. Puzzles that our Bible has been trying to tell us about our world. God's been telling us for thousands of years that there's a dark force at play, principalities that rule our world, and it has been responsible for the calamities, the corruption, and the curses that are responsible for the brokenness we see everywhere. We won't waste any more time to dig in. For this first episode, we look to uncover and unpack one of the darkest socio-economic systems that has risen in our times. Few actually know that Karl Marx grew up as a Christian convert in his early years. His first written work was called The Union of the Faithful with Christ, in which he wrote, "Through love of Christ, we turn our hearts at the same time toward our brethren who are inwardly bound to us, and whom he gave himself in sacrifice." This probably doesn't strike anyone as being Marxist literature, but this would have likely stayed with him if it wasn't for his involvement in liberalist circles and secular education. In a very short span of time, he would write this poem titled, "The Pale Maiden." It goes, "Thus heaven I've forfeited, I know it full well, my soul, once true to God, is chosen for hell." Marx would call Christianity one of the most immoral of religions. Marx is quoted in Richard Wurmbrand's book, Marx and Satan, as stating, "The abolition of religion as the illusory happiness of man is a demand for their real happiness. I wish to avenge myself against the one who rules above." Something indeed changed Marx's view of Christianity. He continued, "We must war against all prevailing ideas of religion, of the state, of country, and of patriotism. The idea of God is the keynote of a perverted civilization. It must be destroyed." Something had also changed his ideas on what God had taught man through the Bible. Marx was now being critical of God's instructions about how to worship the Creator, how to create a nation to protect God-given rights, how to establish and maintain national borders, and how to create the conditions under which all could be free to love the Creator. All of these ideas had a biblical foundation, and each of these principles were taught in the Bible. But Marx wanted to war against all of it. That means that Karl Marx was not an atheist. He always believed that God is real and is the creator of all things. But he rebelled against God, turning to Satanism, which would be the very foundation to the establishment of his historical materialism, Marxist ideology, and his Communist Manifesto. But he would ensure that every communist hereafter would become an atheist. In addition, Marx had found another bulwark of God's plan for man to be unsatisfactory. He also discovered that he had to war against the family. Inside the pages of his Communist Manifesto, he wrote, "Abolition of the family." Even the most radical flare up at this infamous proposal of the communists. Arnold Kunzli, in his book Karl Marx, A Psychogram, writes about the horrors of Marx's life, including the suicide of 2 daughters and a son-in-law. 3 of his own children died of malnutrition. His daughter, Laura, who married socialist Paul Lafargue, also buried 3 of her children. Then she and her husband committed suicide together. Another of Marx's daughters, Eleanor, decided to also take her own life. Marx further showed his disdain for the family unit by fathering a child with his own personal maid. But the most telling on the nature and foundation of Marxism was his immersion in Satan worship. Marx had discovered the world of the occult. Among one of his friends was Mikhail Bakunin, a Russian anarchist, who wrote, "Satan is the first free thinker and savior of the world. He frees Adam and impresses the seal of humanity and liberty on his forehead by making him disobedient." Marx joined a satanic cult headed by Joanna Southcott, a satanic priestess who considered herself to be in contact with a demon named Shiloh. One of the distinguishing characteristics of his membership in this occult was his long hair and unkempt beard, worn by members of her cult. Other communists have declared their hatred of God. One, a communist named Flourens, wrote this in 1871. "Our enemy is God. Hatred of God is the beginning of wisdom." Vladimir Lenin, the father of the Communist Revolution of 1917 in Russia, also voiced his hatred of God and religion. He wrote, "We, of course, say that we do not believe in God. We do not believe in eternal morality. That is moral that serves the destruction of the old society. We must combat religion. The spread of atheism is our chief task. Communism abolishes eternal truths. We shall preach a scientific philosophy. We must fight the inconsistencies of the Christians." He later wrote, "Our propaganda necessarily includes propaganda for atheism." Later communists like Nikita Khrushchev reinforce and renew this ideology. He said, "Do not think that the communists have changed their minds about religion. We remain the atheists that we have always been. We are doing as much as we can to liberate those people who are still under the spell of this religious opiate." The revolution in Russia was the first successful attempt to create a government in a nation based upon the theories of Marxism, the victory of reason over belief. The same too with Communist China from the late 40s to the late 70s. In both instances, 10 of millions were exterminated for showing any sign of dissent. These models of Marxism were increasingly attractive to the oligarchs of the West. Investment banker and oil mogul David Rockefeller praised Marxism in China. He wrote, "Whatever the price of the Chinese Revolution, which was 64 million people killed, it has obviously succeeded not only in producing more efficient and dedicated administration, but also in fostering high morale and community purpose." He would agree that the end justifies the means. Former member of the Communist Party of America, Whittaker Chambers, stated, "Communism is what happens when, in the name of mind, men free themselves of God." Now, here's the absolute link that demonstrates the mechanism that shows us that communism is intrinsically evil. That mechanism is called humanism. Humanism is the very embodiment of the core beliefs of Marxism and communism. It is defined as a modern, non-theistic, rationalist movement that holds that man is capable of self-fulfillment, ethical conduct, without recourse to supernaturalism. It is often called secular humanism, and it is connected to the globalist plan to bring about a new world order, with the word secular being key to its Latin translation found on the back of the dollar bill, Novus Ordo Seclorum. One very prominent and elitist organization attended by the great number of today's oligarchs is the International Humanist and Ethical Union that is held at MIT in Boston. Praised by presidents like Jimmy Carter, the humanists have issued 2 manifestos in which they have stated their religion believes in. The first was issued in 1933. The introduction reads as follows: Science, alluding to evolution, and economic change, alluding to communism, have disrupted the old beliefs in every field of human activity. The vital movement is now in the direction of a candid and explicit humanism. It goes on to affirm that humanism is the new religion that is replacing the old. It regards the universe as not created, therefore there is no God. It goes on to say that a socialized and cooperative economic order must be established and that equitable distribution of the means of life be possible. What you just heard is the very tenets and the very basis of communism. A cooperative economy, equitable distribution, socialized order. Karl Marx supported these very tenets. He wrote, "From each according to his ability, to each according to his need." And, in one word, you reproach us with intending to do away with your property. Precisely so, that is just what we intend. Another principle that is fully supported by humanism and communism states, in the areas of sexuality, we believe that intolerant attitudes, often cultivated by orthodox religions and puritanical cultures, unduly repress sexual conduct. The right to birth control, abortion, and divorce should be recognized. Another principle reads, we deplore the division of humankind on nationalistic grounds. The best option is to transcend the limits of national sovereignty and move toward the building of a world community. We thus reaffirm a commitment to it. Yet another principle states, excessive population growth must be checked by international concord. We might begin to recognize these principles in today's views of globalism. That's because our liberalist governments still adhere to humanism and communism. Today, our governments are working desperately to sell a number of ideas that require drastic changes in order to save the world. They are all built on lies. First, we have the unsustainable human population growth lie. In fact, if we took the current number of people in the world, we could all live in the state of Texas, with a family of 4 living comfortably in a 60 by 60 foot home. Second is the climate change lie. CO2 emissions don't warm the atmosphere. Climate patterns are not affected by human activity, yet it is used as a device to impose drastic regulations and carbon tax on the people. There are so many more lies that we don't have time to delve into. Regardless, humanism is undeniably intrinsic to communism. Marx himself wrote, "Communism as a fully developed naturalism is humanism." In 1970, the new program of the Communist Party USA stated, "Marxism is not only rational, it is humanist in the best and most profound meaning of the term." And Sir Julian Huxley, a signer of the Humanist Manifesto No. 2, wrote, "I use the word humanist to mean someone who believes that man is just as much a natural phenomenon as an animal or plant. That is, his body, mind, and soul were not supernaturally created but products of evolution. So, as he has demonstrated, humanism is based upon a belief in three major philosophies: communism, evolution, and atheism. We need to recognize right now that our current state in our schools, government, and every other institution has already embraced and taken on the godless religion of humanism and the tenets of Marxism. Every value that it represents are clearly antichrist, which denies all that is good according to the goodness that God himself defines. Isaiah 5:20. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, and who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Up next, beneath the broad tide of human history, there flows the stealthy undercurrents that undermine the depths of changes upon the surface of the earth by secret societies. Here on Mysteries Uncovered.